My name is Maddie Williams. I am a historic preservationist at MSA Design, and I've been doing historic preservation for about 15 years now, concentrating on National Register of Historic Places applications for the National Park Service. One of the driving forces behind the National Register application was that the university had done some internal research and had determined that this was the only collegiate chapel in the country that was designed by women.
The Sisters of Charity have long been involved in women's education and empowering women, and I think that came to a head at the time that the university or college of Mount St. Joseph was started. Women were encouraged to follow their dreams, whatever kind of profession they felt called to, regardless of whether it was a profession that women were necessarily involved in at that time, for instance, medicine or law or things like that. I was taught by Sister Augusta, and I have for many years been researching things about the college, university, and about the faculty here, including Sister Augusta, who I consider the best teacher I ever had in many years of education. I think the design and the overall plan for the college started in probably about 1955, 56, because Sister Augusta at that time was studying in Florence and getting her MFA, Master of Fine Arts. She was being communicated with by the college, by Sister Maria Corona and the people, the contractors and the designers, architects, about how this would be, and she was giving her input from Italy on what she thought should happen in terms of the design of the college. I mean, she was a highly respected faculty member at that time. She had a lot of input into the design. She knew she had the talent, and she knew that she could engage these students in this kind of work.
I've worked on a number of National Register applications, and this was probably the most significant in my career, just because it was hard not to feel a connection to the building and to the students and their beautiful pieces of art and the spirituality that you feel when you walk into the space. I was deeply moved, and in my personal life, I feel every day I am still inspired by these wonderful, creative, strong female students in Sister Augusta.
I'm Judy Dettenwanger Ebbeler, and I was in the class of 1961.
My name is Peggy Rolfes Brungs. I graduated in 1960, a year before Judy.
All of us in the art program were asked to do something that we would like to do for the new chapel. We could choose any kind of form, sculpture, painting, whatever we wanted to do. It was right after the graduation in '61 when it was started. And I made a 5-foot crucifix. I just did the corpus. The corpus is the figure of Christ hanging from the crucifix. It was the same sort of figure that Jesus is in the finished piece, in that his arms were up rather than out, and his head was bowed. And I was chosen by Sister Augusta and I think Sister Maria Corona. The crucifix, I really wanted the face of Jesus to look like his face would have looked when he said, "Not my will, but yours be done, Father." I didn't want him to look like he was anguishing, but accepting completely this sacrifice that he was making. Marlene Hoffman was the person who designed the windows, and unfortunately she can't be with us.
I did the Stations of the Cross and the backdrop behind the altar. And I worked a little on the Blessed Virgin, but mostly that was Sister Augusta's design. I just did a little finishing on it. So those are really the two things that I did in full, the stations and the backdrop, the mosaics. And I was just asked to do it, to work on the chapel. I didn't prepare anything for the class or anything. So, I mean, I was in the studio classes with some with Judy and some with the previous year.
Sister Augusta just must have seen your talent and thought you'd be good to do it.
And I did work, after I graduated in 1960, I did work a little bit with Sister Augusta on some other projects that she had.
That's probably why she knew you were ready to do the stations, though.
Well, maybe,
Yeah.
yeah. Sister Augusta was really the driving force behind the whole, practically the whole campus. She did she was in charge of most of it. I don't know how she did it all, really, to tell you the truth. I think she wanted a contemporary design.
She made all the decisions, like how big everything would be and what material that would be made out of and where the material would come from and who would do it. Like the corpus is in bronze, and it was done in Chicago. She said that was the only place in this area that could do something that large. So she made all of those decisions, and what the window, how tall the windows would be, how tall the building would be, and all those things. Sister Augusta was a person that had more energy and more excitement in her, and I think I know I caught some of that as a student and as I was working. That she was always bustling. I'm not a bustler, but she just had a way of bringing the best out of people. Sister Augusta really let us do our own thing with the designs for the most part.
Yeah, she did.
But when I was doing the corpus, as Peg said, she really wanted it to be more contemporary. She took this big sculpture tool that I was using, and she slashed for where the ribs were. And she said, "This wants to be like this." That was always her thing when she was teaching. It wants to be.
Yeah.
It's never "I suggest" or "do you think."
Yeah.
It wants this. And so the whole corpus turned out to be more contemporary, like she had hoped it would be. Marlene and I went to Blanco Glass Company.
West Virginia.
In West Virginia. And she picked out all the glass there. She made full-scale drawings, just like Peg made full-scale for the stations. And of course, those were really big. And she went up on the third floor of, I don't know if it was Seton or Marion. Which one was on the end?
Seton,
and put them all the way down, and then went outside so she could see how it looked. And after she had the glass, she marked on each piece of of every window. She marked what color or which particular glass belonged in there. They were all marked with a number that signified exactly which red, which yellow, which shade of blue. So she had to mark every single one exactly, and she drew, like with the lines where they were thick and thin, she indicated that where she wanted the black to be different. So it was really quite a job for her. All the glass was hand blown, and then they flattened it out. That's why it has the texture that it has. The man who was going to put the windows together, Marlene didn't know how to make the stained glass windows. She was going to design them and choose all the colors. And the man whose company was going to do it was going to drive her. And the sisters wouldn't let her go alone to West Virginia with him. So I was allowed to go, and it was really fun. She was a friend of mine, and she was a really nice person, easy to get along with. She was left-handed. I remember that. She knew how to write with her right-handed and draw with her left-handed, because she said when she was in grade school, you had to write with your right-handed. She made the statue of Mary and Jesus that's out in the hallway, and so she was good at a lot of things. I do know that after she left here, she went to Italy for a while to study, and The last time I saw her, she was working, she was living in New Jersey and working in Brooklyn at the Brooklyn Museum, teaching stained glass. But I also did the St. Joseph statue. And I wanted it to be a little different from the typical Joseph holding Jesus. I made a plaque that has the symbol of Mary and Jesus. And his one hand is above, signifying his protection of them, and the other is below, signifying that he was always supportive of everything. And we did those in clay, and then made a plaster cast on it, and then took the cast off and made a positive in plaster. And all of the statues were sent to Italy, where somebody carved them. After she and Peg left, I stayed for a while and designed the light fixtures, doors on the confessionals, and I helped Sister helped me pick up all the furnishings for the dorm rooms and things like that. We just did a lot of odds and ends while I was here by myself. Somebody told the Voice of America that this was happening, and they sent somebody over after you were gone, and I was interviewed for the Voice of America, and it was broadcast overseas. That was during the Cold War, when they were broadcasting things behind the Iron Curtain to encourage people to understand what was going on with democracy. And I was the lucky one left behind, so I got to do that. But that was really fun.
Well, I think Sister Maria Corona was the head honcho, so to speak, the driving force really behind the funding, which is probably considerable. But I'm sure Sister Ann Austin and especially Sister Augusta, had to confer with her often.
I do know Sister Maria Corona said she did not want any statues hanging in midair. They had to have a pedestal underneath their feet so that they were firm. That was her contribution that I know of.
No, I didn't hear that. That's...
But I'm sure she had to approve that the students or the graduates were doing this work, that it couldn't be done without her, because she was the president of the college at the time.
The background, Sister had in mind the colors. And she ordered all the mosaics from Italy, and then I did the drawing, and then I laid it out on the floor, life-size, and just laid all the tiles out one by one, followed the design. After we got it laid out, we adhered kind of a sticky paper to the back on the tiles to hold them in place, and cut them in pieces and numbered each section so she knew exactly how it was going to be put up, starting with the bottom and moving all the way up to the top. I wasn't here to put it up, but Judy helped begin the process, and I don't know, somebody must have helped her finish putting it up, because I didn't.
I never got up on a scaffolding or anything like that, so I don't really know how it went up all the way.
Well, I think she had to have a scaffolding.
Yeah.
And probably somebody helping her.
It wouldn't surprise me if she'd gotten up on it, though.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sure she did. She hopped up and down like she was very agile. Those are the stations of the cross. And I did the design, and I did the laying them out, and then we had to pour cement onto the back. We've built the shapes up around the mosaic, made up the cement in buckets and colored it, and then poured it onto the backs of the mosaics. When it dried, she put very big iron hooks on the back to hold it to the wall. And those were embedded into the cement. And then when it dried, of course, we turned them over. They're the same on the front and the back, so the color goes all the way through each mosaic. So yes, it did turn out to be sort of opposite them. But you have a clipper. As you're doing your design, you have to clip them to go into shape.
I also noticed that even though Peg and I didn't collaborate, the face of Jesus is very similar in her portrayal in the stations and in the crucifix. They really look very much like the same Jesus.
He was not a white man.
With blonde hair.
Yeah, and pretty blue eyes. That's the way we did it, you know.
You know, the school was only women and there were no men at all except for some of the professors. I know it's an earth-shattering thing now, but at the time I didn't feel like that. I just thought it was a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, it really was.
I was excited to be doing it.
Well, I think their goal was to produce competent, successful women for society, Catholic women, women who were of faith and lived in and worked in this society in Cincinnati area or wherever they went. And Sister Corona always, all the sisters, that was their goal. I think we were honored to have those women as our teachers and guides.
I think the fact that it was all women and we were only competing against women, in those days, if we'd been competing against men, I think we would have been made to feel that we couldn't do as much.
That's true.
I mean, things have changed, but in those days it was if you were competing against a man when you were in school. I went to a high school that was co-ed, and the boys were always the stars of everything.
That's true.
So I really think that helped us in that time frame to be who we were a lot more. There was one local artist, which I told Peg about, I'm not going to mention his name, but he was a liturgical artist, and he was really angry that he didn't get asked or didn't have an opportunity to bid on doing the artwork because he did everything, windows and glass, stations and bronze and stone. And I spoke to him maybe 10 years later. I ran into him and I asked him if he'd ever gone to see the chapel, and he said, no, I will never go to see the chapel. He said that should never have been done by students. He didn't say women, he just said students.
Sister Augusta, I think she'd be delighted. She's probably behind the scenes, maybe giving a little push to this whole thing. I don't know what else to say.
I think she'd be exuberant.
Yeah,
she would just be so thrilled. Well, she is so thrilled.
Yeah. She was extremely kind woman and very energetic, extremely energetic. There wasn't much to her. She was sort of, you know, thin and very frail, and I don't even know how old she was at the time.
I don't know.
She seemed ancient to me at the time.
Yeah, she did seem older, but she had more energy than I did.
She did.
She really...
She would be hopping on that scaffolding, I'm sure, up and down.
And you know, she never bragged about what she had done. I had no idea how many things she had done before she was teaching us. And even when I saw her after I graduated, you know, she never talked about the things that she did later. She just really was a wonderful, humble, extraordinary woman. It was during the shutdown of the pandemic, I decided that I was going to make a book of remembrance to give to the Mount about my experience in doing my part of the chapel. And I wanted to include something from Peggy and something from Marlene. And I went online and I was trying to find both of them because I'd been out of touch with both of them for a long time. Well, a friend of mine where I live knew Peggy, and she gave me her phone number. And I finally found Marlene, only because there are thousands of Marlene Hoffmans in this country. but I knew her family because I had spent time at her home when we were students, and I found them. So when I called, the number that I found, her roommate answered the phone, and she told me that Marlene had Alzheimer's. And I asked her if I could speak to her, and I did. She remembered me. She knew my voice. She remembered working on the chapel. She said she couldn't remember a whole lot of details about it, but she had a wonderful time. She thought it was a marvelous experience. She thought Sister Augusta was really wonderful to work with. And I recognized her voice right away when she took the phone, and it was just, there was so much positivity in the way she was talking about the Mount that it was really wonderful that of all the things, she still remembered the good part of being here. And
well, I feel pretty much the same. I think we were at the right time, at the right place. It was an honor, really, to be able to do this. And I didn't think anything like this would be, this being on the National Register. I never dreamed that that would happen. So I'm very pleased, and I thought it was pretty much all forgotten and long in the past, and it was pretty long ago.
I felt the same way. Made me feel really humble that something so long ago would be recognized internationally. So this is amazing.
It is amazing. It's like you felt maybe it was all forgotten.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's come to life again, really.
Yeah, it was the best thing I've ever done.
It is. It really is the best thing.